I sort of mentioned last time that I might dwell deeper into papancha and anicca. However, all things being anicca, impermanent, I have changed my mind. But maybe not completely. Maybe not completely. Somebody here in the room asked the question, what is the meaning of life or a meaningful way to live life? I think I have given several talks on this topic in the past, but what I would like to maybe talk about is what is a meaningful practice? What did the Buddha recommend as the highest kind of practice? Like a meaningful way to live life is a way that brings quality of life, right? Bring joy, happiness, peace into our lives. And this is what we want, right? We want to live life in a way that brings more calm, more peace, more joy, things like that. So when it comes to that, when I ask, this kind of question comes up very often, and I usually ask the audience, and many people say what brings them joy is the act of generosity or acts of kindness, which is great, right? When you make somebody else happy, when you give a gift, when you do an act of service, even something small like giving a compliment or even a smile or anything like that, being, helping or listening, all of those things bring joy. And this is part of generosity, dana. And the Buddha says, yes, the path starts with generosity. Generosity brings joy into our life. And that is the starting point of the spiritual journey. That is the initial fuel or ammunition or whatever you want to call it, the energy, the driving force, the starting point, that opening up of your heart. However, there is more to it, right? So there is more to it. So I'm going to read out a sutta that some of you may know about it, but nevertheless, it's quite a nice sutta, which has quite a few nice points as well. And this is called Veama Sutta, and it is in Numerical Discourses, that is Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 9, that is the book of 9, sutta number 20. So I'm going to just read out. It's quite straightforward, but it is nice to bring out some of these points to understand about generosity and also the highest form of practice that the Buddha recommends, what is more higher than generosity. So I start. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Then the householder Anathapindika went up to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. The Buddha said to him, "Householder, I wonder whether your family gives gifts." Kind of interesting question, because for some of you who know who Anathapindika was the foremost disciple in generosity, like the male disciple. He gave this incredibly beautiful Jetavana monastery where the Buddha is sitting as he's giving this discourse, and he was one of the main supporters, offering everything and looking after the Sangha, the monastics there. Yet the Buddha asked this interesting question because he has a point. I suppose he wants to bring up the idea of giving gifts. So Anathapindika replies and he says, "It does, sir. His household does give, sir, but only coarse gruel with pickles." Right? Just rice porridge and pickles, he says. "Householder, someone might give a gift that's either coarse or fine, but they give it carelessly, thoughtlessly, not with their own hand. They give the dregs, and they give without consideration of consequences. Then whatever the result of any such gift manifest, their mind doesn't incline towards enjoyment of nice food, clothes, vehicles, or 5 refined kinds of sensual stimulation. And their children, wives, bondservants, servants, and workers don't want to listen to them. They don't actively listen or try to understand. Why is that? Because that is the result of deeds done carelessly. So here the Buddha starts with giving, but he starts explaining how to give. So not to give carelessly, but there are many, many discourses where the Buddha talks about. So when you're giving a gift, to how to give it, yeah, to find out what is suitable, what do somebody need, not to assume that you know what somebody needs or what is helpful. Find out, having investigated, you give it with your own hands, having prepared it with full mindfulness, alertness, and understanding, why you're giving it, how you're giving it, what you're giving, with all of that, and with a beautiful heart, and a heart of generosity, heart of letting go. But here the Buddha says the consequence of careless giving. I mean, giving is still great, but careless giving has lesser fruit, lesser joy. Yeah. So then he says, someone might give a gift that is either coarse or fine, and they give it carefully, thoughtfully, with their own hands. They don't give the dregs, and they give with consideration for consequences. Then, whenever the results of any such gift manifests, their mind inclined towards enjoyment of nice food, clothes, vehicles, or 5 refined kinds of sensual stimulation. And their children, wives, bondservants, servants, and workers want to listen. They actively listen and try to understand why is that? Because that is the result of deeds done carefully. Yeah. So isn't that the case? Like when we even receive a gift, like when we realize somebody really went into trouble to find out what is it that you need, what is most helpful. Because sometimes when you get gifts, it can be a burden, isn't it? Sometimes you don't know what to do with it and things accumulate and somebody has wasted money and time. But, it can even be harmful sometimes, some things that we give or get. So it is important that we give things after careful consideration. But let's move on because the sutta gets much more profound than this. And then he goes into saying, this is now the Buddha, right? The Buddha is telling, once upon a time, householder, there was a Brahmin named Veama. He gave following gifts, a great offering, 84,000 gold cups filled with silver, 84,000 silver cups filled with gold, 84,000 bronze cups filled with gold coins, 84,000 elephants with gold adornments, and banners covered with snow gold, netting, whatever that means, 84,000 chariots upholstered with hides of lion, tigers, and leopards, and cream rugs with gold adornments, and banners covered with snow gold netting. 84,000 milk cows with silken reins and bronze pails, 84,000 maidens, jeweled and earrings, 84,000 couches spread with woolen covers, shag piled pure white, embroidered with flowers, the spread with a fine deer hide, with canopies above, red pillows at both ends. Anyway, luxurious things is the point of this, right? And this other number, I don't even know how to say it. It is 8,400 million. So it has 8, 4, and it has 8 zeros, whatever that comes to be. I can't even count that much. How big that is, whatever that is. I think it's 8 billion, maybe. I don't know, 8.4 billion. I don't know. Fine clothes of linen, cotton, silk, and wool. And who can say how much food, drink, snacks, meals, refreshment, and beverage? It seemed like an overflowing river. So it is like this most amazing kind of generosity. Householder, you might think surely the Brahmin Velama must have been someone else at that time, but you should not see it like this. I myself was the Brahmin Velama at that time. I gave that gift a great offering, but at that time, that event, there was no one worthy of religious donation, no one to purify the religious donation. So this was in a previous life of the Buddha. In a past life, Buddha was called a Brahmin Velama, and he gave this incredible, outstanding kind of material gift. But he is saying, but at the time, there was nobody that was really worthy of receiving it. In the sense, worthy in the sense, somebody who is pure, somebody who is attained to purity, because the gift is purified also by the receiver. Why is that actually? It is not coming up in this sutta, but the Buddha talks about it in other suttas. It's because imagine, it's not to say that you don't give to other people, because not to misunderstand where a gift should be given, because I'm going to get sidetracked a little bit, but it is an important point for anybody who is a bit confused or not understanding about how to give. Another king, King Pasenadi Kosala, one time goes to the Buddha and asks, Bante, where should a gift be given? At that time, where should a gift be given? Interesting question, right? And when the Buddha asked, when King Pasenadi Kosala asked this question, the Buddha said, a gift should be given where your heart is inspired. Right? So wherever your heart is inspired. So if you see like a poor person, somebody who is hungry on the street, and if you get inspired to want to give, you give, right? And also you might see somebody, a monastic, you can give also, or to anybody, you might give to a dog who is hungry. Wherever your heart inspires, there is where a gift should be given. But if you want to know where is the highest merit, like where do you accumulate more merit, then the Buddha says the merit is higher depending on the purity of the person that you give. But the Buddha never says, give to where the merit is higher. That is not the point, right? So this is where sometimes people go wrong. They try to look for monastics who are highly attained to give the gifts because they can get more merit, so they can really go to the heaven or get all these amazing things. But Buddha never recommended like that. But of course, the Buddha says the merit is higher when the purity is higher. Of course, with higher merit, you would get higher, attainments, will be helpful for your path. But, that is not the idea, not the criteria to give. The criteria comes from where your heart is inspired. Why is it also important? If somebody is purified, somebody who also shares these teachings with others to purify their hearts, they do an incredible service, right? They're like a doctor to the mind, because there are people who are suffering. So if somebody is talking about, a way out of suffering, way leading to ending of suffering in a nibbana or enlightenment, that is worthy. So supporting somebody like that, as opposed to somebody who is a robber, a thief, or somebody like that, it's better. But even if a robber or thief is in difficulty, and if you feel like you want to help somebody, that's all right. But you can see the general idea, right? So this is just to clarify the idea of giving. But in this occasion, the Buddha says even that large donation was not as meritorious when it comes to the talking of merit, just because it couldn't be purified by the receiver, because there was nobody that was pure at the time, right? So then the Buddha says it would be more fruitful to feed one person accomplished in view than that great offering of Veama. So that incredible offering that amounts to maybe billions of dollars, yeah? And to many, many people, maybe even, maybe to nations. He says, much better just to feed, give some food to keep life going for somebody who is attained or accomplished in view. This is another way of saying somebody who's attained to the first stage of enlightenment, a stream winner. Yeah. So somebody who's already at a very high level of purity, he says, much better to give to just one person. So imagine, this is important. So now you have to pay attention because people are so hooked up on giving, yeah, generosity and offering dana. But where the dana, and you will see as it comes down in that. And then he says, it would be more fruitful to feed one person who's a once returner. So that is somebody who's attained to the second level of enlightenment. And it would be more fruitful to feed somebody who's a non-returner, yeah, than 100 once returners. So it goes in many folds, right? Just somebody who's in the third stage. It would be more fruitful to feed one independent Buddha than 100 perfected ones. It would be more fruitful to feed one realized one, a perfect one, a fully awakened Buddha than 100 independent Buddhas, whatever it is. It would be more fruitful to feed the mendicant Sangha headed by the Buddha than feed one Buddha. So he says, just it's much more meritorious to feed the entire monastic order or many monastics than just one Buddha. But this is just feeding, right? This is just food. This is just the food dana. Then it goes, it would be more fruitful to build a dwelling, especially for the Sangha. So building a monastery or even a hut, a place to stay is much more than offering food even to a Buddha. So just to give for the Sangha a dwelling or building a monastery or a kuti or a hut is much more. If it is given for the 4 quarters, then feed the mendicant Sangha headed by the Buddha. And then it goes, it would be more fruitful to go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Now, this is an important point, yeah? So now you could see the highest forms of giving, billions of things, material things, then feeding enlightened beings, including beings with the Buddha, and offering lodgings and all of those things. So this is all about giving still material things. They are purified by these enlightened beings, so they are of extremely high merit. But listen to this, yeah? Much more fruitful than that, going for refuge to the Buddha, his teachings, and the enlightened monastic order. Take a moment to reflect the power of that, right? This is Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami that we recite. But if we recite that as a parrot, not understanding what you're doing, or even if you know it, but you don't really feel it in your heart, or you don't understand it, then it does not bear any fruit. But with understanding why that is, now this is an important point. Some weeks ago, I think I did a talk about a refuge, yeah, finding true refuge, being an island to oneself, and that kind of a talk where we discussed this a little bit. So in here, like if we realize that life is inherently unsatisfactory, if you are lived long enough, gone through life, even good life, even if your life is well, you are in good health, everything is still going reasonably well. Even then, if you come to the point, and then what? What next? What is all this about? What is the point of all of these things? And you come to understanding that inherent nature of unsatisfactoriness of existence, then you come to the understanding. You need to do something. You need to find something, right? Just what is the point of me faring on in this life? What is the purpose? What is the meaning? How do I live this life in a way? And how do I overcome these problems? Because even though life is going so well right now, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much education you have, how much contacts you have, how much material things you have, if you are sick and in pain, can any of those things take away the pain that you're feeling? Even some of the pain, medication can't take away the pain completely. Yeah, so the painful feeling of sickness, yeah, that is a problem. And if you don't die young, then old age, when old age comes, when the body starts to age, we can see how that is a problem. And of course, the death can knock on our door at any time. Yeah, it could be now, it could be tonight. We might not wake up tomorrow. 2 or 3 nights ago, I was awake in my hut around about 4:30, and there was this ginormous sound. It was very, very scary. That was the night that it had a lot of rain. I don't know about Sydney, up in the Southern Highland. It rained and rained and rained heavily all night, and a tree fell on top of my hut. It is the scariest thing. Like, it is really loud. It was not the biggest tree, but it wasn't a small tree either. It was quite a decent sized tree. Luckily, it fell on a corner. It didn't damage anything, but it was scary, right? But it could have been a bigger tree. It could have fallen in the middle. The truck, the hut may not have, being able to bear the weight of it. And I could have gone, yeah, that quick, that unexpectedly, yeah, even if I'm inside my hut, let alone if I was walking. These trees, they are called silent killers or silent something, yeah. They fall so quickly, unexpectedly, yeah. So this is how uncertain our life is. Even if we are well, even if we are young, death can happen. I mean, trees are nothing compared to every time we are on the road, right? Accident can happen anytime we never think about it. So life is incredibly uncertain. When old age, sickness, and death is coming at us, where do we go for refuge, for protection, for safety? If you want safety from these things that are inevitable, other things are also there, but these things unavoidable. Yeah. So this is where we realize no matter how much money we have, money can't take away old age, sickness, and death. Separation, being separated from our loved one at the time of death. Money, no matter how much money, no matter how much material things, how much knowledge, how much people, and even the insurances, because this is where people normally look for refuge, right? They go for refuge in money, in education, in good contacts, insurances, all of those things. It's okay to have them. They can bring something, but very small. Yeah. So that is where, when you understand, but if you can make peace, if you can be contented, if you can be unmoved, unshaken, as these challenges are coming at you, if you know how to deal with these things properly, well, then you have found a refuge, right? So this is why. So the Buddha and his teachings and his enlightened Sangha, they all refer pretty much to the same thing, and that is to right view. That is what the Buddha brings, right? The arising of the Buddha is called the arising of the I, yeah, into the world that breaks through the darkness of delusion. Yeah, that is the right view. These are these beautiful teachings. Right view, right understanding brings incredible peace to our life at every level, right? Every level. We've spoken many Dhamma talks about it, but it's every time beautiful. Right now, as I'm saying this, as you're hearing this, as you're reflecting this, it goes into our heart, the power of going to refuge, to the Buddha, to his teaching, to the enlightened disciples who brings this right view, which is a true refuge at times of when old age, sickness, and death is coming at us. And of course, all sorts of other problems as well can be, we can make peace, we can learn how to deal and increase the quality of life, live life well. So the Buddha says, so much more merit, much more higher than any of those incredible gifts. So that's why he started with the highest form, incredible highest level of giving material things to the incredible people. Much better to go to refuge with true understanding why you are going and saying Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. So every time when you say that, bring that joy into your heart, understand. And the Buddha says, even if that confidence, if you understand these wisdom teachings, which are many, which are so many, if you have applied them, if they have brought some peace to your life, then you know they are valuable, they are beautiful. So the other thing is these teachings, you don't have to wait till you die to benefit from them, right? The mind is incredible, right? Just a slight change in your perspective and you're released. You see something differently and immediately you're free from that suffering. You shrug your shoulders and say, that makes sense. Fair enough, I understand. To that degree, you are at ease. So as you learn, as you understand, even at knowledge level, even applying it at knowledge level, it still brings peace. But of course, when you internalize this right view, it's much more powerful. And when you become right view, that is one accomplished in view. That was the first person to give purified. It's even much more beneficial, you can see. So that is why going to refuge with the understanding is higher. But the Buddha doesn't stop there, right? So a meaningful way to live life will be by going to refuge to the Buddha, his teachings, and the enlightened order of monastics. And not just to go for the refuge, then the Buddha goes. It would be more fruitful to undertake the training rules, not to kill living creatures, steal, commit sexual misconduct, lie, or consume beer, wine, and the liquor intoxicants, than to go for refuge to the Buddha, the teachings, and the Sangha with confident heart. So look at that. So he says, the Buddha says, even more than even going for the refuges, taking the refuges, is keeping the 5 basic precepts. So this is the power of just keeping 5 precepts, not any higher. Just the basic 5 precepts is incredible. Yeah. So think about that and bring up joy in your heart if you have been doing this. Yeah, even if you have been doing this for one day, or 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, much more if you've been doing it for longer. This is a great source of joy into your heart. So see where the merit is by keeping sila, just the simple 5 precepts, let alone the times that you have been taking 8 precepts, going on retreat and things like that, right? So just reflect, put things in perspective, where the highest merit is, what is a meaningful way to live according to the Buddha, how he explains things. And then it goes even more. It would be more fruitful to develop a heart of love. That means metta in here, loving kindness, even just as long as it takes to pull a cow's udder, than to undertake the training rules. So much more powerful to do metta meditation, even in other places, a snap of a finger, right? Very short time. But of course, he's mentioning here, though, not just normal state, just say, may all beings be well and happy, but a purified state. Yeah, metta comes from a purified mind, a defilement-free mind. So this is like Metta jhana, that is for a short period of time. Even it is just a way of explaining, but whatever it is, cultivation of metta meditation, yeah, loving kindness meditation is more powerful. So if you're doing that, imagine how much more benefit that is. Why is that actually? You know, this is all about purification of the heart, isn't it? This is all about purification of the heart. And the way to properly understand metta meditation is not about you being here and spreading love to everybody else to purify and cure other people. This is the wrong understanding. That could be a byproduct. That is what you do. But in order for you to be able to do that, you need a pure heart, right? You need a pure heart. The joke is like this. If you get irritated by mosquitoes, then you can say, may all beings except the mosquitoes be well and happy. Or if you have an enemy or somebody you don't like, then may all beings be well and happy except so and so. So you can see how it is hard, yeah, to say may all beings be well and happy without the purity of your heart. I have done a couple of Dhamma talks and even a whole series on the Metta Sutta explaining how metta meditation is about gradual ways of purifying your own heart. So that is why metta meditation is much more powerful than even keeping the training rules. So, and then the Buddha goes, it would be more fruitful to develop the perception of impermanence, anicca sanya, even as long as the finger snap, yeah, than to do all of these things, including developing a heart of metta for a short period of time. So this is the point that I wanted to come into, but I thought it's nice to remind everybody of power because we all get carried away and forget the power of some of these things that we already do. So that doesn't mean not to do any material support, not to do any generous acts or things like that. No, we need to keep doing those as well. But understand, where there is power and why. Yeah. So I'm not going to focus on the metta meditation today, which is a very powerful talk, which I have spoken before, especially on the sutta classes that I did in Sundays. One of the classes I spoke about metta sahagatena sutta, and there I spoke a lot about how we purify our own heart, how it is directed, where the Buddha says the path of metta is all the way for enlightenment and to jhanas and to developing the enlightenment factors. But even more than that is this perception, developing the meditation on anicca. Because last week, that was one of the topics, right? One person asked me to talk about papancha, another person asked me to talk about anicca. But I did give the talk starting with papancha and ended with anicca and explained how the idea of impermanence can cut through our prolific mind, which is quite interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting way of understanding and dealing with this prolific mind. But of course, the perception of impermanence is a very deep subject. It's at the heart of the Buddha's teachings, yeah, and it is recommended as the highest form of practice by the Buddha here in this sutta and in other places too. There are many, if you want to do a search, how many times the Buddha says the benefits of developing the metta or anicca sanya meditation, the perception of impermanence. Yeah? So this is a very important subject, even starting from very basic things, going all the way into very deep things. Yeah. So therefore, I also want to read out one of the suttas. There's many suttas, just to say how the Buddha said this, and then maybe touch on how it is to be done. Okay, so this is in Connected Discourses, that is Samyutta Nikaya, book on the Salayatan, the sense basis, chapter 22, Sutta, discourse number 102, the perception of impermanence. At Savatthi, mendicants, when the perception of impermanence is developed and cultivated, it eliminates all desires for sensual pleasures, for rebirth in the realm of luminous form, and for rebirth in future life. It eliminates all ignorance and eradicates all conceit, I am. In other words, full enlightenment, yeah? And then in this sutta, the Buddha goes into a large number of similes, which I will not go into because I already read out a large sutta, but I highly recommend for you to read it out. It is just giving similes, but here I will read just one simile. In the autumn, a farmer plows with a large plow, shears through all the root networks. Shears through all the root networks. In the same way, when the perception of impermanence is developed, it eliminates all desire for sensual pleasures, for rebirth in realm of luminous form, and for rebirth in future life. It eliminates all ignorance and eradicates all conceit, I am. So I am is self, right? So it gets rid of non-self as well. So when you develop the perception impermanence, it also does the perception of non-self, because they go together, they cannot be separated. So it's quite powerful. But here I'm just going to say, and how is the perception of impermanence developed and cultivated so that it eradicates all conceit, I am? Such is form. Such is the origin of form. Such is the ending of form. Such is feeling. Such is the origin of feeling. Such is the ending of feeling. Such is perception. Such is origin of perception. Such is the ending of perception. Such is our choices or sankharas. Such the origin of sankharas. Such the ending of sankharas. Such is consciousness. Such the origin of consciousness. Such is the ending of consciousness. That is how the perception of impermanence is developed and cultivated, so that it eliminates all desire for sensual pleasures, for rebirth in the realm of luminous form, and for rebirth in future lives. That's how it eliminates all ignorance and eradicates all conceit, I am. So here, if you're familiar with the Buddhist concepts, the idea, the perception of impermanence is to be applied to the 5 aggregates, the 5 khandhas, and that is form. What is form? This material form, yeah, starting with our body itself, which is a material form, but also the forms outside, other people and other things. All material things is called form. And then there is feeling. That is the second one, yeah? All the feelings. Perceptions, yeah? Perceptions is how you know what you're feeling. So the idea of identification of things. Sankhara or choices is your will, but not only your will, everything that is made up by your mind, everything that is created and constructed, all of those mind activities except feeling, perception, and consciousness, everything else falls under the category of sankhara or choices. And then consciousness itself. So these are the 5 things, yeah, 5 personality factors. These are the things is all called 5 khandhas, or whatever you want to call. This is how we are made up, yeah, which we call as a being is made up of these things: a material form, feeling, perception, mental formations or volitions, all these things that the mind creates, and consciousness itself. So very often people take these to be myself. Yeah, this form is myself, the one who feels all my feelings myself, the perceptions to be my mind, all my thinking, all the things I create in my mind, all of those things to be me. And of course, consciousness, the one who knows to be me as well. But not only that, people take also these things to be permanent. I mean, if you ask the question, we know I could die anytime. This body can just go. And once it's dead, it goes back into earth, right? It just becomes soil again. But even though when you ask the question, it is there in the background of our mind, our feeling is we are going to live a long time. This is how we plan our life. Yeah, I'll do this and go there. And, so we have many, 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 many years. Even somebody who is 80 years of age, who may only have not that long to live, the feeling is you still live a long time. So this is this idea of permanence. Yeah. And the idea of permanence also comes to feeling. We know feelings are so transient, last only a very short time. But how was it when you got sick? How was it the last time you had a toothache or a tummy ache or a headache or got sick? Do you remember how worried you got, thinking that I'm never going to get better? This is so painful. It feels like it's never going to change. When you had a heartache, when you broke up with somebody, yeah, or you lost somebody hurt you, that feeling of hurt, the feeling of sadness, how did you feel? It's as if it's going to be there for the rest of your life, right? You feel like that when it is there. But is it true? We know it's not true. Is it there now, right now? It's not there. Many other things. Have you laughed since the sadness? Yes, yeah, while you're grieving, you could also laugh for a moment. Yeah, our feelings are so transient, so changeable, so changes so quickly. Yet, our general perception about this is that feelings are permanent, especially the bad ones. And good ones, they don't last long enough. They're never long enough, right? You want them to last forever and ever and ever, but they seem more impermanent. But these other feelings, you have a feeling of them being a bit more permanent. That's the wrong kind of perception. And perceptions, we think that we know how to perceive things. But how often is it? Have you changed your mind? I mean, things that you hated as a child to eat. Do you like some of these food now? Do you enjoy? And things you really enjoy to eat like a child. Do you feel disgusted? It's true, isn't it? Things that is kind of music you liked or things you like to do changes. Yeah, these are perceptions changing. What you liked and disliked, said good or bad, beautiful or ugly, constantly changing. What you think is cool, who you think is beautiful, whatever. All of these things change constantly. Your mind changes. You may like this kind of person at some point in life and you change to somebody else, something else. All perceptions are also completely unreliable and changing and impermanent. But we think that our perceptions are permanent. That's the general view. And of course, our thinking, our views, our intentions, our will, all of these things also quite transient, unreliable, completely unreliable, but we have this idea of permanence. Then consciousness, we feel it's always there when it is only conditionally arisen. So this is the thing. So this is this wrong view that we have that these things are permanent. But when you talk about it, it's so easy to see how impermanent these things are. So in order for our perceptions to turn otherwise, and so that we get more and more the idea of impermanence into this form, material form, into feelings, perceptions, and all of our mental formations and consciousness, we need to do it as a meditation. Yeah. So this is to be done as a formal practice. And how do you do it? Yeah. So in order to do that, first of all, you need some reflection, some ideas, or even listening to a Dhamma talk about it, even Dhamma discussion, or reflecting in your own mind, yeah? Understanding, how does this material form come about? Yeah, material form needs certain nutriments, right? If you stop eating, this body would die. Yeah. So food and water and oxygen is necessary. It's dependent on these things for its but also contact and your volition and consciousness. These are the four nutriments that keeps the body originates based on these nutriments. When they are gone, the body comes to an end. Yeah. So how is the body coming to be? How it passes away. So when you actually know, and the seeing death, people dying at every age, yeah, every age, as we speak, people, kids, babies are born already dead, or they are born within few minutes, they die, few hours, few days, weeks, months die. Yeah. So every time, just walking on the forest or anywhere, actually, at the time there are many leaves falling, but you think it is only the old leaves. But especially after a storm, you see even the little green leaves are falling, right? Everything. So that's an idea of this impermanence. Anything, yeah, everything is changing. The death, the ending of material form, changing like a tsunami coming, the idea of wars, idea of earthquakes, accidents, all of those things. You can see how quickly the material form changes. It is called rupa just because it changes with heat. Yeah, it changes with the environment. It is really a very not a very strong thing. It can evaporate. This body can evaporate or become ashes instantly, right? If you ever seen a cremation of a dead body, how fast is that? Yeah, it just burns and becomes ashes in no time. So this idea, when you have it, then you don't have to think every time like that. It's just like if I ask whatever your hometown is, just by mentioning the name of your hometown, you know what it's like. For people who are in Sydney, if I say Sydney, you know what Sydney is like, right? You don't have to think Sydney has this, that, and it's like that in detail. The moment I say Sydney, you know what Sydney is like. But for somebody who's never been to Sydney, well, they'll have to be, they'll have to read, they'll have to one day come and experience, and then they know. So in the same way, once you have done these reflections beforehand, when you do the formal meditation, just when you say, Rupang Anicca, form is impermanent, it is conditionally arisen. And when the conditions pass away, it passes away. So just bringing that idea is enough because you've already done the work before. The perceptions are already developed. So you just only bring that in because that idea otherwise doesn't turn around. No matter how much we know, we just have that very background feeling of this body being permanent. That even though I ask the question, you don't think you would die tonight, right? It is not there. You think it's not going to be tonight, it might be later. So it takes a long while before this comes in. And then feeling, it's really interesting to see how does feeling come about? Feeling comes from contact, right? So when there is I, when there is external form, and when you give attention to it, when those come together, I consciousness comes to life. When those three come together, you say it's contact. Based on that contact, you contact with your eye a sight. You made a contact of sight. Then you see. And based on that seeing, you get a feeling, either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's all it is. Yeah, you get. So based on your ear, when there is a sound, when you give attention, the ear consciousness comes about. And you have an experience of sight. And that is when you feel a feeling based on that hearing. So like that with all of the six sense bases, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, we make contact, and with that contact comes feeling. But when that contact changes, the feeling changes, right? Very quickly. So right now you have contacted hearing, and maybe if you have your cameras on and watching, seeing happening quite rapidly. It's only one contact at a time, but you go between the two very fast. You feel like you are seeing and hearing at the same time. But if I now ask the question, what can you taste now? Can you see how you direct your attention to the tongue and you have an aftertaste of whatever you had last, whatever the taste, there is some taste in your tongue. But before than that, you didn't make that contact. Your tongue consciousness was not there, and you didn't feel that. Yeah, now the feeling came, and based on that feeling, you have perception. You already identified what was that feeling, what was that taste, right? So perception is also come from contact. So contact gives rise to feeling. Contact also gives rise to perception. Yeah, so both of those things. So you can see how short-lived these things, because our attention goes, we are like monkeys, right? Our attention goes from one to the other very quickly. One time to the eye, next to the ear, next to the tongue, next to the body. So constantly our feelings are changing. But sometimes because of our interest, we keep going back to those things for a while until something else grabs us completely, and that's gone. But we forget that. Yeah, we forget how short-lived feelings are. Even if you have chronic pain, the level and the intensity of your pain isn't maintained at one peak level. It changes, and you get breaks. Yeah. So it's interesting to know that. And then once you have seen that, once you observed it, even during meditation, even during your day-to-day life, when you pay attention and see the fear you have for pain goes away, and your running after of pleasure also subsides. What for? What am I running after? Working so hard to earn money, to experience this? Yeah. And how long does it last? So important. We forget that, right? We still run after these things. Very, very fleeting. Feelings are very fleeting. So once you have that, when you see that impermanent, unreliable, transient nature, it's beautiful. Yeah, it changes your entire life. It brings incredible peace to your life. Yeah, because you are no longer running after things, not discontented. Yeah, all these desires, all these cravings, all these wantings are based on your feelings. You are running towards pleasure and running away from pain. This is our life, our entire life. It's this. Yeah. But once you understand the true nature of feeling, how impermanent it is, finally you're at peace. Okay, all you got to do is just wait. It changes, it passes. It's like wind. It's like the clouds in the sky. Can't hold on to. Yeah, only for a little while. Some people are good at trying to hold on to some feelings for a little while, but you can never hold on to these things. They passes. Perception, the Buddha says, is like a mirage. There's nothing really there. Really, we have made it up based on our views. That's what it is. That's how we start seeing. We give things name, call it a chair, call it a table, call it a flower, call it a Buddha statue, whatever it is. And then it becomes, what is it? A piece of metal or piece of whatever. Now you see a Buddha statue or some flowers. But, all these things are made up. Yeah, perceptions are also transient. So, that idea, these are deep factors. You need to take time, but you do first do these reflections again and again to build up the idea for each factor. But then when you sit and meditate, when you say perceptions are impermanent, yeah, how the perceptions origin from contact, when the contact breaks, the perception ends. So in this, and of course the mind states, yeah, mind states are incredibly fleeting, transient. How much you change your mind. I tell this all the time, my kind of favorite thing to say, but it is so powerful every time to remember, because we still get fooled by these things. No matter how many times I have said it, I also get fooled. So I need reminding myself, like, how is it when you get a text message or an email that is a bit emotion triggering, or an emoji even, yeah? How quickly you get under the power of that when we forget about these things, yeah? How quickly our mind can change. The next thing comes. Our mind changes so much. The stories it build up, like last talk was about papancha, the proliferation, how our mind is like the best movie director. We should win all those movie awards, We create the most amazing movies in the whole. Our mind is the director of all the movies of our life, and also the ones that we see, based on our mood, based on the views we have taken on board, based on perceptions. All of those things we create different stories. Just you saw a simple message, and depending on your views, depending on your mood, you take that story in one way and you get emotional. Maybe you got really upset and angry and wrote something. Yeah. But if you didn't hit the send button and 2 hours later you want to write again, it's a completely different story. Your mind says, actually, they have a point. It's not all that bad. So you almost start saying, you have a point. And a little later, it's like, actually, this is good for my practice. This is brilliant. I should really have gratitude for this person to bring this up. So it goes from being angry to really having gratitude, even. It's that varying. And in the meantime, that person has not done anything, nothing has changed. Only your story that created by your mind has changed. This is how fleeting all these things that we construct are. Our mind is completely unreliable. It tells you stories. It tells you all kinds of things. This was the entire talk we were speaking about here last week, about papancha, the proliferations. Yeah, and what a waste of a life. What a waste of time. What a waste of our feelings, emotions, because we are much better at creating drama than fairy tales, right? We do both, but mostly we create a suffering, pain, despair, anger, worry, anxiety. These are our common stories that we create and construct. But we have a choice. If you want to construct anything, construct something useful. Yeah, this is why. Construct that is something real, which is true. So this is what this building up of perception of impermanence is about. Yeah, we're constructing something that is actually true about these things. That is real. You're aligning your view, your understanding, your everything with the way the world is. So just watching, just the mind, all this mind construct is fascinating. Actually, you become very quiet. Yeah, you become at ease when you see the mind and its proliferations and its creations that are baseless most of the time. Yeah. And then you see the impermanent nature of these things, this fleeting, unreliable, transient nature of this. It is bringing so much peace, so much joy, so much contentment. Yeah. So, and then consciousness. Consciousness is conditionally arisen. We just mentioned, yeah, the icon. We have 6 consciousnesses, yeah, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So these 6 consciousnesses arise based on when things come together. Yeah, when the eye and form comes together with attention, eye consciousness comes up like that. Right. When the mind and the mind object, when you give attention to it, is when the mind comes together. But it happens so quickly, you feel like your consciousness is permanently there, but it isn't. In meditation, in deep meditations, consciousness can cease. So consciousness is also impermanent, but all these other four are much more easier to understand as well. So then once you have done that work, then it is beautiful to actually sit in meditation from time to time and go through this beforehand, and then actually it reduces your defilements, hindrances, because you see, when you see unreliability of all these things about body, feeling, perception, mental constructs, and consciousness itself, your mind turn away from its interest into the material world, even to the world of the mind. Yeah, it calms down very quickly. So meditation becomes very easy. You can become quite still. So you can enter deep meditation as a result of just doing, building up this perception on impermanence in the right way, just the way that we described, but doing it again and again and keeping your mind directed on it in a beautiful way. Mind calms down. Even though you're looking at something that is unreliable, even though you think that might bring maybe even sadness, what happens is, as a result of mind entering deep meditation, your experience is joy. Joy state starts to come. Yeah, joy state starts to come. So you can take it. You can take the idea of impermanence. Not everybody would like the idea of impermanence, right? But when it is supported by meditation, when it is done as a meditation, as you experience joy states, and as you come out of deep meditation, then you understand much more subtle forms of impermanence, that there is nobody here, there is nothing that is permanent in these five personality factors, in the five aggregates, is impermanent, and what is impermanent cannot be taken as self. That is why when you do impermanence, it also does non-self. So you understand, to that full understanding, that is that understanding, the deep insight of an arahant when it happens fully. But you can see how it leads that direction. That is why this meditation on building up meditation on impermanence is very powerful. It really is very powerful. So sometimes if breath meditation is hard, if your mindfulness isn't coming together, if your mind is not inspired, it is not, then sometimes this kind of impermanence meditation can be, if you are inclined towards that. Like for me, I really love this idea of, anicca sankhara. Yeah, this is a chant that we do at the time of death. Anicca sankhara, uppadavaya dhammino, uppajjitva nirujjanti, te sangupa samo sukho. So all these things, all sankharas, all the constructs, the bodies, feelings, mind states, things around us, everything is constructed. All of those things are of the nature to arise, whatever ever arises, pass away, and therefore is impermanent. But what is really profound, what is still very blissful, is the stilling of all of these things. Yeah, upasama. Upasama means the stilling of all of these things is the highest form of happiness. Tesang upasamo sukho, the highest form of sukha, is the stilling of all of those things. So that is where you get to as you practice this meditation on impermanence. So and so that, or just even saying, Sambe Sankara Anicca. In Pali, that all constructed things are impermanent, or all form is impermanent, all feeling is impermanent, even taking one. And if your heart inclines, inspires towards that, because you have seen it, yeah, because you have seen it even at day-to-day life, even during meditation, even better, yeah. And then that idea itself very quickly still your mind and brings it to deep meditation. So very powerful way to get into good meditation, deep states of meditation.